We are breaking into programming now to bring you the very latest information on a breaking news story involving a shooting of 5 victims on Wide Away at a church in Sacramento. Right now, Sheriff Scott Jones is talking to local news outlets. So let's go to him live so you can get the very latest details on this horrible tragedy.
If you feel like you're in danger, then get out and get some help and talk to someone you trust, because not that every instance turns out like this, but enough of them do for us to see this tragedy replay over and over again.
Do you know, we know that the children are all under age 15. Do you know their genders or have any other details about them?
I do not. I don't have any additional information on the children.
Okay.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate it.
Oh, and do you know who took out the restraining order against him? Was it the mother who requested?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but you don't know.
So if you heard that, that is the sheriff, and what he was just saying is that we are learning that there was a restraining order taken against the father. So what was happening at the church was a supervised visit. So it was the person who normally does these supervised visits that took the 3 kids to the church. That's where he killed the 3 kids, all under the age of 15, and then turned the gun onto, it could have been a social worker, it could have been someone else, a family relative that supervises these visits, killed that person, and then turned around and killed himself. So those are the latest details that we're learning. Again, this all started to unfold at 5:07 p.m. It was a worker on the roof who initially heard those first few gunshots. It was one, and then it was boom, boom, boom. He left the scene, called 911, and by the time deputies got there, they said all 5 people were dead on scene. No one, not the kids, made it in time to the hospital.
Our Morgan Reiner. Morgan, we were just hearing the tail end of Sheriff Scott Jones giving that press conference. Can you tell us what he said about the mother involved in the situation? Was she there at this supervised visit?
No, the mother has a restraining order against him, so she is not at these supervised visits. It's a third party that supervises them. And what he pointed out, the sheriff pointed out, is that if you have a restraining order against you, you're not supposed to even own a firearm, a gun. So there's a lot of questions here unfolding with this new update. But no, the mother was not there. She has been informed, and she is on her way to the scene right now.
Wow, horrible news. And again, Morgan, this is Sheriff Scott Jones just talking to our news conference. This is the update that we were waiting on after the first initial details were coming in. Did he say anything about the shooter's name, the identification of those children? Do we know much more about their family dynamics as well?
No, and he says that he has no plans to release the name tonight, and not just because his next of kin hasn't been notified, but it also connects the kids to him because they have the same last name, and he doesn't feel comfortable putting that out in the public yet until everyone is informed in the family as to what exactly happened, because the last thing you want to do is find out on TV that your family members, your loved ones, your kids under the age of 15 were all murdered.
Right, Morgan, this is so horrible to hear. Thank you so much for providing us with the very latest details from Sheriff Scott Jones. Just to reiterate again what we know, 5 people are dead following a shooting at a church called this Church in Sacramento on Wide Away. A father at a supervised visit because he has a restraining order against him from the mother of the 3 children of his, ended up opening fire, killing his 3 children, and then turned the gun on himself. And also another person was killed in this ordeal. We do not have the identification of any of the people who are deceased right now, but this is what we know. You're seeing and reading the very latest details from our sources with the Sheriff's Department, as well as Sheriff Scott Jones just talking to our local news. Let's get things over to our Giacomo Luca, who is there very close to where the shooting happened. Giacomo, you've been talking with people who live nearby too, because not only is this church in a very busy intersection, but also near a neighborhood.
Well, Madison, right now we are just across the street where Wida hits Ethan Way, and just where we're standing, you can see that line of police cars that are sitting here directly in front of the church, which is on actually the left side, just over that sign where you can see Ethan Way. If you come to my right now, our photojournalist Xavier is going to show us down here. You see a couple of fences which are just lined up against homes here, where a number of folks folks live. I spoke with a young girl, 13 years old. Her name's Kayla. She lives in this neighborhood behind me. We spoke with her a moment ago. She said that she was actually out in her backyard doing her toenails when she all of a sudden hears a number of police cars and helicopter, and then she races to inside because she's so frightened about what happened. I asked her tonight, because she's now been following what's going on in her community, asked her about how she feels about this situation and just learning some of the news, and she says she certainly has thoughts with this family tonight. Those young girls that were killed, the daughters of the suspect in this case, in the same age range as the young girl we spoke with, so certainly emotions running high tonight given what's happened.
Our Jock Maluka live on the scene right there as you continue to see so many law enforcement agents still working to process the scene and investigate. Giacomo, thank you. Let's get over to our Van, too, who has been there since the moment we heard this was happening earlier today, right after 5 p.m. Van, a very active situation. Of course, we're hearing some roads are being opened, but you can see those detectives behind you still actively working the scene.
Yeah, we are able to get closer to Wide Way now that Ethan Way is officially reopened. Now, just beyond the police tape right here, you can see the church in Sacramento. That is the name of the church where this deadly shooting took place. A father killing 3 of his own children and another adult before turning the gun on himself. So a total number of dead tonight, 5. And again, we're just learning that that father had a restraining order against him, and this was a supervised visit to visit his children. His mother was not here, so that adult is a third party. Now, we are working to learn more about those lives involved, and at this point, investigators say they are working on the assumption that one of the parties involved were members of this non-denominational Christian church. We actually had a man here who just approached police officers, really distraught, saying that he was a member of this church and really walked away in anguish here. So this again is a very busy area, as you know, of Arden-Arcade. It is just 2 blocks away from the Arden Fair Mall, and Wider Way is just a couple blocks, of course. So ABC 10, we did speak to an elder at the church earlier when this was all taking place, and they said at the time of the shooting that there was no sort of service taking place and the gates were locked. So what we do know is from a sergeant at the sheriff's office who said that the 911 call, the initial 911 call, came from a pastor who was upstairs, and what he described to the dispatcher was that he was upstairs and that there were 2 adults and 3 juveniles in on the bottom level of the church. We now know that that was a father on a supervised visit to see his 3 children, but what it turned out to be was that he had a restraining order, so he wasn't allowed to have a gun, but he took that gun, shot his 3 children under the age of 15 and another adult. So really a tragic situation here tonight. Madison, Chris.
Absolutely, Van. Thank you so much for the very latest information from the scene as you're seeing us pan away from the church where this horrible tragedy took place at 5 o'clock. Of course, our hearts go out to the entire family of this woman and those children involved in this horrible tragedy. Our law enforcement community as well, seeing a very horrible scene play out at the church in Sacramento on Wide Away. Our coverage continues all night long. We will have much more information for you coming up on abc10.com, live there on abc10.com, and much more information coming up at 11 right here on ABC 10 for Late News Tonight. Thanks for watching.